So, hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning for another round of writing, publishing, design, of books, of games, of anything that involves readers, players, of fiction books, non-fiction books, and currently games. Focus currently is games. If you look at the previous few episodes of the last few weeks, the focus was more on publishing, like the technology, on character design, on story design. And today it will be a continuation of last week's episode. Last week we started discussing the commonalities between the between writing games and writing novels, and we saw a lot of parallels, and the main difference we saw is that games are basically story machines for the player. So they play the game, and that's their story machines. They make up own stories, they go through different routes through the game. So it's like a book, just instead of one plot there are many plots, and many paths through the game. Okay, so I'll switch over to what we did last time. So last time we started out, okay, how do we start with a new game idea? How do we start with a new game? And the same you could start with, how do you start with a new book? Because a book is just a subset of a game. The special thing about the book is you just have one line for the reader to go through your entire book. A special exception would be game books like Fighting Fantasy, if you remember those, where you are asked after each paragraph what to do now. Do you go left or right? Do you open the door or don't you open the door? So those are also non-linear books, but they usually of course, end and begin at the same point. And with games, it's a little bit more open, because if you play with several players, different people can play, and the game could end in different ways. So that is the basic point. But in at the core, game design and writing a new book is the same thing, and product design is the same. So there are many similarities. You always have to do market research, and we talked last time about it. I just briefly go over this now. So just look at the last episode about Ngram and trends, where you just do market research. There are also research tools for Amazon, where you just look, okay, what is the current interest? What do people like to read, like to play? The other thing we discussed was different types of players, different types of readers. Like one's like the big scenes, a big impact of the story. Another one wants to really win the game, so they really want to delve into the rules of the game. And the third one we discussed is Johnny, the innovator that really wants to understand how your world works and think about new scenarios and different ways to solve the problem. For example, like in Lord of the Rings, why didn't the eagles throw in the ring into the mountains? So that would be more something for Johnny. And if that works, then for every discussion about Lord of the Rings, then the Spike person or a Spike character would say, hey, Lord of the Rings, that's just silly. Why didn't the eagles throw in the ring? That would be the strategy. And while the Timmy, watcher, reader, viewer, player would be more enticed to not think about like those problems with the rules of your world, of your story, but more about the big emotional situations, big emotional moments, or the big battles, basically. So, I mean, there are more than those three. Those three are just from games. For novels, you have additional type of characters. But if you start with a project and it doesn't really matter what type of product it is, it's good to have an idea, okay, there are different types of people. And if you look at your own product, your own book, your own game, and you notice you didn't think about, okay, there are different types of people that might use my product differently or read or have different expectations on my product, then there's a problem. Then you should sit down and think about, okay, maybe not player types, but maybe reader types, user types. Think about how people will use your product, and that is the putting yourself into the shoes of your customers, of your readers, of your players. Okay, the other thing we said, okay, we have an initial idea for any product. Usually you start with a short story or a short idea or a certain mechanic in the context of games, and you start with it, and you're not fixed on that idea. I mean, you can change the idea. That is just a start. It's just like going into a maze and thinking about, okay, should I go left? Should I go right? I just choose a direction and see where it gets me. So that is basically the first step. And it's very possible that this might change through your research, market research, through thinking about who will use your product, and by looking at your competition. Okay, and that is just a summary of last time. And for today, we will add a lot more stuff to that. So we had here, last time we ended with the question about the character types that are in the novel or in the game that the player represents in the game, in the novel, and that is where we will continue. One last thing, we also talked about the hero's journey. Just bring it up again here. The hero's journey last time about the plot element, but this is not connected really to character types. That is basically a single character type. That is someone who is unfamiliar with your world, who reads it the first time. So you have people interested, as we mentioned before, interested in big impacts in the world, big creatures. You have the one that reads the rules and the other one that innovates new strategies. But this is basically a fourth character, someone who doesn't know your world at all, someone who reads your novel the first time, someone who plays your game the first time. So imagine writing a novel, and imagine it is very different to write for an audience that already knows your world. For example, if you're writing for an existing genre, if you write a Star Wars novel or a Star Trek novel, then you can expect people who read your book already know the main characters. So you don't have to establish them. So you don't have to basically introduce the reader slowly to your world. You have a totally different starting point. But of course, for games, it's usually that most players will play it once, maybe twice or a third time, but most players play it once simply to see does it work. And here, reducing the amount of obstacles in terms of rules, in terms of world, really helps. And that is why I discussed last time the hero's journey. So the hero's journey could be part of your novel itself, but it could also be part simply of your rule book or of how you describe the world. Again, if you look at Star Wars or at many different movies or novels, you always are introduced into an ordinary world. Something changes in the world, and then you build up basically the character. So you, the viewer, the reader, knows as much about the world as the protagonist, and that is an ideal way to go. And for games, we want to do the same thing, especially when writing the rule book, because that is basically a normal book that people read, and you have to introduce certain complex things. So it goes a little bit into the non-fiction part, but also into the fiction part, because you not only have to explain the game mechanics, but also the world mechanics. What kind of world do we have here? And for that, we look at an example that I'm currently working on. Right? We will first... I'll first explain how I arrived at that. So in my game that I'm currently designing, I started out really with a game mechanic where I say, okay, I know a lot about project management. I know a lot about science fiction. So why not combine that and create a game mechanic where the player, the reader, takes over the role of a project manager in a future world, and why or what is the motivation? And already we're in the character part. What is his motivation? I thought, well, what is my motivation in project management? My motivation in project management is to change hierarchies, because I see hierarchies as a problem for day-to-day business. If you have a lot of interaction going on between management or necessary interaction between management and the teams that implement the work, then you have a slowdown of the whole process. And that is something I don't like. So I thought, well, why not create a game that questions that and opens the eyes for the players. Hey, maybe we play that game, and maybe by what we have learned in that game, we will question the existing hierarchies at the workplace and create a workplace for my colleagues. So that's the basic idea. Starting with that, I quickly saw, okay, it's a difficult motivation, because really it's very special in that regard. I mean, it is my motivation, but how many people will I find that have a similar motivation? It's also a little bit far-fetched, and how do I explain it? Should I really start with some dry project management? And then I thought, okay, maybe let's add a little bit more story to that character, to the reader or player character. And I thought, well, maybe there is a person or organization working against you. So you have another organization that works with methods you don't like, and your own organization, where you're the project manager, where you, for example, care for your employees and create a nice atmosphere and have them let the decisions. And then through the game mechanic, you will see that if you make the right decisions as a CEO, you will end up better than the other organization. Then I thought, because you always have to, when you're building a world, you always have to say, okay, why? But okay, what is the motivation? Why does someone want to beat another organization in that regard? I mean, what do they have something to prove, or what is their motivation to get into that position first? And I mean, they would have to know how the other organization works, because they have to add a negative experience in that regard. So I thought, okay, maybe the protagonist in the story of the game did work for that other organization before and saw that doesn't work out, so he or she quits, creates their own company, and then competes with the other organization. So we have a competition going on. We have a character that knows what's going on in terms of one moment, in terms of your project. So one comment here by Telotate. How do you measure the efficiency of your recipe, the hero journey image? So let's switch back. Right. So a lot of what I talked about is was more in my mind. So if you want to apply this one for example, for your rule book or your for your novel, even for nonfiction books as well, the key is really testing. And that is something people usually do too late. So usually most writers go into their basement, write, and then have their completed book. They want, of course, a nice cover first and a back cover, text, etc., and then give it to other people and then wait for feedback. But that is way too late. So you really have to have this introductory story very early and give it to someone and ask them about your world. Ask them about how your world works based on what they read. So this testing is crucial, and especially for games, it's one way to do it is blind testing. So you don't even explain anything about your game. You just hand over the rule book or hand over the game if you have already a few pieces ready, that maybe handmade or something like that, a real prototype, and just hand it over and say, okay, test it. And then tell me what the game is about. There's a great manual, if I find it quickly. One moment. There's basically there are many different books about that, but one is good. Okay, I will probably discuss this next time. So it's basically a game design book where you take the book and sit beside the person reading the book or actually playing the game, and then make notes. And the book basically guides you through the process and guides you through asking certain questions, and that is one way. So play testing or testing is crucial. Does someone understand what you want to say? And that is the key here really is to find really more practical methods where you say, that is a cheap way of getting to that point. Really to get to that prototype, and you really should rush to that point. So if you're spending months and months and months on editing and spell checking, etc., and then only present your work to another person, then it's too late. I mean, then half of your work can probably be thrown away because or either that or your product gets worse because you don't make the changes based on the feedback of the person. So really get to a point where you can really produce a first version of your introduction. And one way, for example, if you want to work more, or if the question is if the mood is interesting or the theme is interesting, is to use either, for example, you probably have seen for movies how they do it. They draw actually scenes in the movie and put it on the wall and explain the finished idea based on the drawn cheap images, and see what the response is. And you have a number of other tools, and I will present two today for that. That is, one is here is I'll switch over. This is called Byteable. That is basically a video platform. I think it's free, if I remember correctly, where you can combine video clips and music and text and create like a first fake trailer of your game, of your book, and see also for yourself, is that something that people would find interesting? I mean, it will be not the best quality, but if you can hit some right notes where a viewer says, that's an interesting book, that's an interesting idea. I know this is just a draft of a trailer, and it will change. But you have some interesting ideas that evoke some emotions in me. So ask them about the emotions and use tools like that to quickly create something that you otherwise might need months and months and months of work. For example, I created a trailer. One moment. For my project, but I will come to that in 5 minutes, and we will watch then the trailer, and then you can tell me if that goes into in that direction. Okay, so where were we? We were here at the question of the example of my game. So we jumped off. Where is that? Okay. The player needs some sort of competitor so that it's interesting, and the player has worked, or the character has worked in that organization, and now they're competing. But still, the question is why. So whenever you make a design decision, like the character is in this city, or the character does this and that, always ask yourself why, even if that why never even appears in your book, if you never even mention the why, because you need to check or test your own idea if it makes sense. Otherwise, you have a disconnected mess of a character, and that's uninteresting, because then your character will not act consistently, and if your character doesn't act consistently, then your character won't meet the expectations of the reader when the reader turns a page or reads your rules or plays the game. So the expectations are not met, and then it's no fun. So really have a coherent, consistent idea why something is happening in your book, movie, in any product where people act, basically. So in my point, and that is maybe something where we can go back to the hero's journey. Here I wondered, okay, the ordinary world, okay, I checked that is working in another company. Call to adventure, well, I could rationalize that, okay, someone starts an own company. Refusal to call, maybe the person hesitates. Meeting with a mentor, okay, maybe the person explaining the rules, and then crossing the threshold, okay, creating a company. But it is all sounds a little bit boring. I mean, that is not the motivation are really missing. So I went in two directions. First one, in the game, I added a game mechanic where there are number of players, cards, and each card has a separate motivation, and I just show it to you. Character. Yeah. So I just copy the one. I just copy it just here. So yeah, I'll just can see the work in progress. So you see a lot of to-dos here. So what I approached here is there are different player types. We already talked about player types here with Timmy, Spike, and Johnny, but I also draw some inspiration from the Enneagram. That is a personality theory about motivations. There are 9 different types. That is maybe something for a separate video. And the 9 different types have certain motivations. For example, the type 4 wants to be special, or wants to do their own thing, and that is similar to here the innovator, maybe to have an own solution to a problem. Then maybe maybe the 7 might be more chaotic. So maybe as a game mechanic, I wrote here as an idea, okay, I will shuffle up the existing character motivation, so no one knows really what character that person then is. Or we have like someone who wants to help other people, so maybe that there's a separate separate character motivation where the player takes the role of a, in the hero's journey it's called the herald, but as a storyteller, someone who likes to explain rules or likes to explain the world, and maybe that is a character or a player motivation in that regard. So that is something where I can appeal to that type of player, and you often find someone in a group of players. Maybe not, so you have to need some sort of flexibility. Or for example, another one would be revenge. Maybe that works with the Timmy character type, like someone who was beaten by another player and they want to do a big plan of revenge and really decimate the other player in a more in a game where it's more challenging. Of course, this often you could also apply this to characters in a novel, or an idealist, someone with a sick relative, so the standard one, or someone who's just a shadow, and also that's part of the hero's journey description, where who just wants chaos and just wants to put things upside down, so that person maybe can draw 4 event cards. It's a mechanic in the game where it's like, okay, there's a random event going on, so maybe a special ability of that character would be to draw those 4 cards. So those are just brainstorming ideas, though they don't really work yet. This is just some ideas I threw together. But you see here, okay, I'm not only writing now for one person, but for different player persons, and that is that would be one way to tell people, okay, that is your motivation why you quit why your character quit your day job and now is working in their own organization. Still, I thought, okay, it's an interesting mechanic, but it's still boring. So I thought, okay, what about those organizations? I already had the idea about a cyberpunk story. Cyberpunk, you have to know that is about like a science fiction future, dystopian future, where it is controlled by mega corporations that control everything. They have private armies. They are basically their own governments. And I thought, okay, maybe I'll approach it that's also something that organization is still faceless. Maybe I'll approach it. Who was their supervisor, or why did a player even join that organization? What type of organizations are there? So I do world building. Even if that might not appear in the game, I need that information to really build the rules or the world. And then I started thinking about, okay, what kind of cyberpunk organizations are there? And then I saw, okay, I need to do additional research. How do the different cyberpunk novels, what organizations are there? And then I thought, okay, in what world actually could those different organizations emerge? And then I'm already deep down the rabbit's hole, but that is important because all your other decisions about the world can then be based on a coherent whole, or on rules where you don't have to invent something or explain something, that but it simply naturally flows from the rules of your world. And that is the ideal one, because then your novel, your game, whatever, writes itself, because you can easily create characters stemming from those different organizations. So what did I do in terms of those 8 organizations? So one moment, where did I have that picture? Here. Okay. So another one from politics I used. There's something called the wait one moment. The 2D compass. Okay. Before I go in there, your question was details, tips on how to quickly create a board game, and how to do it as fast as possible. That would be good for another I will just take that with me for next time. I can just finish my thought on the backstory and then show you two tools where you can quickly create cards and actually play the game like in 3D. Okay, but I mean, it is a very complex thing. That's why I try to go it step by step. So how to create that world? So I used the 2D political compass. You might have seen that in a similar form, and just for each sector here, I throw in two names I thought up, and created basically 8 organizations. And here is more like capitalism and anarchy. Here's more anarchy in terms of communism. Here's communism, and here's basically corporatism or conservatism, and here nationalism, fascism. So you have those very, very extreme directions. And I thought, okay, let's start with the extremes. And based on those extremes, I'll see, can I create basically organization characters out there? What is their motivation in that world? And then based on that, I went forward and thought about, okay, in what kind of world would this even happening that we have those 8 organizations? Because having a connection, of course, to the current world, I thought about, okay, what would happen between now and the future world? Because if you can start in now, you already have a connection to your reader, to your player, because you can say, okay, they start in now. Okay, I will show the trailer for this. So based on all those thoughts, I created a trailer, and that would be a first tool you can use to create a mood trailer, really to find out, is the theme right? And then if the game mechanic itself is right, I will show you a second and third tool. So let's start with this one. Wait a moment. This one you want, edit. Yeah, so what you can do here, so you can basically use their stock footage. So they have hundreds of different stock footage to really get the mood right in terms of video, and also add also stock music. It's not the best, but at least it is something you can easily use. And I'll just show it to you, and it's, I think, 2 minutes. 2 minutes 40. So I have to activate audio. So just as an example, and how it looks like in the game, in the trailer, basically. Here you see, of course. Okay, and as you see, it's went into a very different direction, of course, and it's all about motivation. Why? Because at the end, there's nothing yet about the game, what you're actually doing in the game. But I mean, this one but might never appear for people who will buy or read the book. But this is important for you to reflect on. Okay, does this world work? If you're looking at it like a movie trailer, could this world really work in that way? Or do you see, this doesn't fit, that doesn't fit? I mean, this is also a work in progress, and I can already name a few things where I say, this may be too far, or this doesn't work, or this is this realistic, etc. So it helps as a tool. I really recommend Bytable, and if you here you can can just add can search for videos and just add whatever you need, and just click on something, and then it is added in your video, and you can then, where is it here, and then you can edit the text, and that's it, and maybe add a transition. So it's basically a video editor also in it, and it's free if you have that banner on the left and right side. And it's really good to quickly make a trailer and see, does this work thematically? So now the second question is, okay, sure, that is all that, but how do I actually test the game? And here there are two other tools. And we will look at the first one, that is NAN Deck. Again, that is there aren't many tutorials out there. I just show you the app. One moment. This is one moment. You have to open the deck. So this is basically a card game generator. So. Okay, so I'll show it here. So what you see here is basically a script that generates cards. I mean, really the graphical cards that you can then print out and start to test out. For example, I'll just build this deck and show you how it looks. Takes a moment. Yeah, but before I go into that, I'll just show you the cards here. So, okay, that is better. I'll show you the visual editor. It's a little bit easier. Okay, I think I'm... Okay, so with that, it created here an image of those 8 cards. Of course, there's still a lot here to do. But you can add here things individually, can change the text, etc. And what you can even do is to get all the texts and images from an Excel file. The Excel file could then look like this. Could look like this. So you have all the elements already here in the Excel file with the texts and icons and images, and all you need to do is change something here, and then it will appear. So for example, I will change here there are still images missing, so I'll change, I don't know, where's the headquarters here. For example, I'll change the headquarters here from Seattle to Düsseldorf, Germany, of Autofag Inc. and save it and go back here and revalidate, build the deck. Sometimes you have to restart the thing, so it depends on if it works. So, and I mean, already it starts already. I mean, you might not be building now cards or something like that, or you might be writing a novel. The point is there are many tools out there that make your life a lot easier, and okay, it didn't work. I first have to close it and then start it again. That make your life a lot easier. I'll just start it again. And basically take all, yeah. Is it the right one? Yeah. So it makes your life a lot easier, and you should really invest some time into tooling, even if it's just for story organization. Sure, you can use stickers or something like that, but some organization and some tools are really good. Okay, so I'll just take a look. Okay. So we had, yeah, Artifact Inc., Düsseldorf, Germany. So I changed the Excel file so everything can be, oh, I should also share it. Everything can be controlled in the Excel file, and it shows up here in the cards. And for the cards themselves, they are output here in a PNG. Can I click here? No, I have to open it separately. And they're already in the right format that you can use to import it in the second tool I want to show you. First, the output. Yeah, so the technical parts are of course always a little bit cumbersome, and it applies in specifically for card games, but of course it might be also for others. So they already generated 8 games, so already in a certain format that another program that I will show you now can use. And I'll start the other program. The other program is called the Tabletop Simulator. You can get it on Steam, for example. And that even allows online play. So you don't even need to print out anything, because that also takes a few days, or well, at least a day. Or if you print it out, of course, in your home computer, it costs money. So you can simply use this one. I'll just have to check if I can share it. It's on my other screen. One moment. So I have to use the other screen. So I have to share the display for not this one, not this one. There we go. So you should see something here, and I can create a game, single player, already prepared one. And here are my cards. So it's still loading. And previously we changed one card here. I mean, it's still here in development. You can do everything here with those cards. And I'll just check if it has made the change. Yeah, here we go. So we made the change, and the change is here, Düsseldorf, Germany. We made a change, and you can use those cards. You can play those cards. You can move it around. You can have little dots moving around. You can draw a card. You can switch it around. You can move the whole thing. You can let it shuffle and shuffle it through. So there are a lot of possibilities, and it is excellent for testing your game. And all it does is loading those output files from the NAN deck, and simply creates cards out of it. And you have to just specify the dimensions of the cards, and you can then play with it. And you can even do multiplayer, so you can invite someone playing here and then test it out. And I mean, that is really the core of writing, of creating, to really have test with your audience, with your players, with other people as soon as possible. And tools like Bytable to create a mood trailer, then NENDeck, I will list those links then in the comments. NENDeck for creating cards, for printing it out yourself, or for importing it into a tool like Tabletop Simulator. And for creating the rule book itself, my preference is always Overleaf, simply if you're working together with other people to comment on it. Alternatively, just Google Docs, simply to have also a platform where other people can comment on it. And that is crucial, just like you're commenting on this video, and give me feedback. Okay, so we have now what did he managed to finish today? We found out, okay, we have to ask those why questions. Why is something happening? Why are the characters there? What is their motivation to even start out their original journey? What is the world? What is the ordinary world? What happened in the world? What is their call to adventure? What character motivations do they have? So we have to ask those why questions to really get to a world where we can then much easier make future decisions about cards we add, about subplots we add. I mean, I have created those 8 organizations, and already with that I could think of three stories about them, about working in them, about their conflicts and how they work together. I don't have to start with an empty page. So really that world building is crucial, and creating, as your question was, creating a game quickly is challenging, because creating games can take a long time. But of course, the key is really to get to the point where you can test it as soon as possible. That is one. And same with books, as I explained in previous workshops. Find out what is the climactic moment in your story. What are the main characters? How do they interact? And really focus on that. Maybe write a short story and see how will people react to that? Will they ask, what happened before? What will happen to them? Because then you created a good element of your story. You don't have to create everything, but you can test it as soon as possible. And testing is, of course, also by simply having creating those trailers, creating those test cards, simply to show people, or to also create a rule book that you can just give someone, and they will read it and explain to you what the game is about, because then you really got them. If you don't have to explain to them what was really about, then you really got them. I mean, that is with movies. Movies are, or good movies at least, are like that. You don't get like a instruction book at the beginning of the movie where you explained what's going on. I mean, for example, most famous example, Star Wars, you actually do that. You have that scroller where the basic world is explained. Or for example, in Dune, you also have that in the old version, 1984. You also had that introductory speech. What is the world about? And that is challenging, of course, for the viewer to get into the world. So the best movies are where you can easily get into, where you can imagine someone being in there and really follow the story. For that is for today. For next time, I will go again into maybe more into the mechanics, what come out of that, both for story design as well as for game design, as well as I will have made some progress in terms of tooling, and I will link the NENDeck and the tabletop simulator below, as well as Bytable, simply for creating trailers. Because it's easier to, instead of describing like the person stands in the room, to simply scroll through some pre-made stock footage and simply put that together. I mean, it depends on how you work, but it is something I really like to do, and to really have that first mood trailer and then really go from there and see if this works. In this regard, thank you for joining, thank you for listening, thank you for your questions, and looking forward to your feedback in the comments, and looking forward for next week, same time, 9 o'clock in Germany at least. And also, if you like to join the meetup group, I will also link that below, and or subscribe to the channel below to get notified each time I will do a live stream. I'll do also weekly one now every time 9 o'clock. So thank you. Have a nice week. Have a nice evening. Have a nice afternoon. And talk to you next week, next Sunday, same time. Bye.